stop and take a deep breath. Release it.
Today we're interviewing Crystal Belly, and we're talking about her journey having a hysterectomy. How did you feel when you were made aware of your complications?
And at that time, I was super frustrated. So finding out that it was like a real cause behind it, it just frustrated me even more because I didn't know what to do with it.
What got you to the point where you felt like you needed to go to the doctors to even, decide on having a hysterectomy?
Honestly, I was tired of all the complications of like constantly like bleeding, not knowing why. And it was getting to a point of like the up and down weight gain, hair falling out, skin like changing. I was just over it. Like, it's got to be some type of solution. Y'all have to tell me what's wrong. Because for years they was telling me they didn't know. Like, we don't know what the issue is. And it wasn't until I switched doctors that I found out what was really wrong.
Wow. How long, like how many years did you suffer from, was it like since teenager? Like how many years was it that you were suffering like with heavy bleeding?
So as a teenager, I always had that issue. I would get constant migraines, heavy bleeding, but it wasn't until after I had my daughter that it got worse. So I would say at least 6 years, 5, 6 years. Yeah.
And when you went and got so it's kind of like, okay, let me go get a second opinion.
Yes. I got the new doctor, and from the first appointment, she told me I needed to get a culture done.
Okay.
And that's how I found out I had endometriosis. And that's what was causing it. The lining of the uterus was super thin. And that's what was causing all the issues. And that's when she gave me the ultimatum, because it was to the point where I was bleeding through my clothes. Like nothing was stopping the bleeding. And it literally was the day of the fashion show when I came home and I just felt so drained. Like I was dizzy. I thought I was going to go lay down. And literally, if it wasn't for my mom telling me, like, go to the hospital, I don't even know we'd be having this conversation. I drove myself to the hospital, went in there. My hemoglobin was at a 4. They was like, Miss, we don't even know how you talking, standing, breathing. Like, that's checkout level. But they was like, I think your body started to adapt to functioning on a lower level. And they was like, you have to have an emergency, like either blood transfusion or something. So I was getting IVs because I was like, well, I need time to make a decision.
Yeah.
In the midst of this, we were planning the Milano fashion show. So nobody even knew. I would go to the hospital during the day. I would get IVs all day, sit on the IV for like 8 hours to try to get my hemoglobin. Because they told me even if I they was giving me all these options of like plastomy something. And hysterectomy was like the final straw.
Okay.
And they was like, we don't get your hemoglobin to at least a 10. Like, we're going to have to come up with some other options. So I would go 3 days a week, sit on the IVs, and then go downtown, work these shows. No, I was burnt out, drained. But I was like, yo, something got to give. And they was like, you too young, first of all, to be getting a hysterectomy.
How old were you? How old were you?
31.
31.
31. It was like, you're too young. What if you have, you can still have more kids? This is it for you. Like, you're done if you get this hysterectomy. I personally didn't care because I didn't want any more kids. But I still was thinking about the future. Like, okay, if I get remarried again, like, what if he do want kids? But I was like, my personal health is way more important to me. Like, this just can't be it anymore. So she's like, your options are you either continue to deal with this. We can try to treat it with different medicines and hormonal balancing things, but you'll still be dealing with this, or you get the hysterectomy. Sign me up. That's what I said. I'm getting the hysterectomy.
In between this, while you're going through this, what are you emotionally? Where are you? Are you like checked out, or are you feeling everything that you're going through? Like, are you?
I was emotionally checked out.
Oh.
I don't think I ever processed it in the moment. I was so like frustrated that I just wanted it to be done. Like, I can't function. I'm also out of work because I gotta go to the hospital 3 to 4 days a week and sit on the IV for hours. I'm not working, and I'm almost embarrassed to go anywhere because if I'm scared to sit down anywhere I go, because I'm legit in seconds, like bleeding, and I'm wearing Depends pads, multiple layers of things, and that's how much I'm bleeding through the clothes, like that bad, every single day. and they giving me, nothing was working. No birth control, nothing was slowing down the hormone. On top of the fact it was triggering my thyroid, so that was going up and down. Like, it was just a crazy period. So for me, I just wanted it to be done. Like, whatever, what's the answer? What's the solution? Like, that's what I'm getting. But my biggest thing was, like, I heard so many horror stories of, like, hysterectomies and you're young that I didn't want my hormones to go completely left. So they told me I could get a partial. So I still have my ovaries.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have a full hysterectomy.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Because they wouldn't even do it. She was like, you're
Because
too
of your
young.
age.
Yeah, she was like, it's going to send you into early menopause. You're way too young for that. And it's going to give you way more complications. So I finally agreed to the partial hysterectomy. She's like, but you have to also know you're going to be down for another 3 months. So now I got to process, like, financially, like, all of these things. How I'm going to get my daughter around. Like, I'm a single mom. It was crazy. So me trying to even just internalize all of those moving pieces was a lot all at once. And I had like 2 weeks.
To decide. Wow.
Yep. I waited until after the show because I knew I had to follow through with the show.
Yeah.
I got the hysterectomy surgery the week after the fashion show.
Wow. So what is life like now? Like, after having a hysterectomy, what was the first stages of, like, your body? You know, how were you when your periods were coming on? Like, how were you feeling?
So it's weird because I don't have a period anymore, but I
Okay.
still get the symptoms because I have my ovaries. So I still ovulate every single month.
Because you still have the, yes, still, yeah. Okay.
Yep. But I
Okay.
don't bleed.
Yeah.
But what they did tell me, which I thought was crazy, was because I saved my ovaries, I can still have kids. But I have to have a surrogate now.
Okay.
Because I can't carry because I don't have a cervix.
Okay.
So they just removed the cervix. So, like, that was kind of like so if I do get remarried, it doesn't have to be a total no to me having a child with my husband. It's going to cost us some money, but the option is still on the table. So that was kind of a relief, like knowing that it wasn't like a total cancel out of me having children again. But for me, I just felt like my life changed, like a breath of fresh air just kind of happened. But physically, I still was frustrated of, like, me bouncing back of, like, what my body looked like beforehand. That was a huge, drastic, like, deal to have to deal with because they told me on the table, and I, like, joked with the doctors, like, so y'all don't perform, like, plastic surgery? Like, they was like, no. Like, that's a whole separate, different process. And I'm like, so now what? They was like, if you want to go back, like, you have to get plastic surgery. You're going to be stuck with these scars, and, like, this, you have so much scar tissue that it's not going to go anywhere. Like, you got to get plastic surgery. So then that was the process of, okay, what does that look like with my life? How much does this cost? When am I going to have the time to, like, be down again and, like, do this all over again? So I waited 3 years before I got, like, plastic surgery to, like, reconstruct my body back. But even that's a process. Like, now I'm going under the knife again.
And mentally, like, so, like, through that process of the 3 years before you get that, do you still feel like a woman? Do you feel feminine? Or do you feel like, dag, I had a partial hysterectomy. Now my stomach is bloated. I don't have my same shape anymore as a woman. How do you feel?
It's definitely frustrating of, like, finding, like, your sexy back. Because it's like, I don't feel comfortable in my skin the way I used to feel. So it's just like, okay, so now how do I adjust to this? Even, like, in a relationship. So it's just like, you know, this is weird. Like, I'm not wearing, you know, the way you used to could wear lingerie and stuff like that. Because it just don't fit the same. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and then I'm stuck with this little bulge that's not going anywhere. So it was just a bunch of adjustments, which I think also it allowed me to, like, I pulled back too from a while so I wasn't dating or in nothing serious. I was just career focused because it was like, I can't focus on both. Not right now, where it's like, I kind of got to get me together first before I feel like I can even attempt to do this, because this is not who I feel like I am in this space. So I got to refine myself and make those adjustments. But I was like, I'm not going to feel comfortable until I feel comfortable the way I was before.
And I think that's, like, the biggest thing for women to, like, sometimes you look and you be like, wow, you struggle with, like, I want to look like how I used to.
Yeah.
And I think that the growth, like going to the next level
Yeah.
as a woman is understanding like, okay, now I have to accept where I'm at now.
Yep.
And what does that journey look for me now? Because
Now.
I'm not her. This is who I am today.
Today. Yep.
And embracing that journey, because that's a long journey, Crystal.
It's a
3
long
years.
journey.
That's
Yep.
well, actually 9, because
Yeah, it started.
it started.
Yeah, literally right after I had my daughter. So it was just like embracing that whole process, being okay with it, buying new wardrobes, you know what I mean? Just to accommodate and adjust, like to being this new person. Because really, you are really a whole new person again, because your hormones change. Everything changes. So it's like, and then explaining it, because then everybody doesn't understand that either. Like, even the process of me being intimate again was a journey. Like, the person I was dating, I let it go simply because it just wasn't fair. Like, it was such a struggle. Like, the pain that it would cause, like, it hurt so much just to even try to be sexually active again was a process. Yes, it's still a process.
So many women, we struggle.
Yes.
And we don't even know how to articulate ourselves to even be able to tell. First of all, we don't even know what's going on within us to be able to even say, this is what I'm going through. And I think that's a big deal.
Yeah, that's super important with our growth just as women, of like yourself, and like you were saying, like a man, like being with a man who can have those conversations with you, talk about it, because this is health, honestly. Like, it's just
health.
It's health.
Yeah.
It's like health class. Like, everybody went to health class. Like, this is real life. Like, this is not for play. And if we're going to be together, you got to understand this is my journey too. So it's like, this is a part of my story. You got to understand what I'm going through just for us to be able to be successful if we're going to be successful together.
Absolutely.
Because every day is different. The hormones do their own thing every day. It's something different. So it's like, I'm already spending enough time trying to control them. So you got to give me some grace. Like, today is not that day. Like, I'm over here struggling. So I'm appreciative now. But I think it was meant for me to take that time too, before being in the position that I was today. Because that wouldn't have been a thing. You know what I mean? Like, in the relationship I was in before, it wouldn't have.
And it would have did more damage, and it would have broke you.
Yep.
And it would have left you feeling hopeless as a woman. Like, dang, why me?
Right.
And it's like, it doesn't have to be about why me. You can still be empowered and find your own grace in your own journey of like, okay, how can I be the best, even though this is my situation? Yeah. But like, how can I still blossom in my situation? Because it's a trauma. You experience a lot of womb trauma.
Yep. And I tell people that, like, everybody's traumas look different. Where my traumas have always been like health related. And it's always a question of like, mine's always happened at weird moments too. It was always at like a peak or a shift of like something big going on in my life. Then some sort of health thing would happen. And I was always trying to figure out like, why? And then when I realized it's because God was sitting me down because I wasn't taking care of my health. I was putting everything first as a priority and not myself. And then it would always come crashing down like boom. Because it wouldn't be small things. I would get sat down like in my health. Like, that would shut everything down. Whereas like for me, it was the eye opener. Like, well, you're not getting this. Like, if you don't take care of you, you're not going to be able to have anything successful or anything going well in your life because you're not putting priority on your health. Whereas like, you know, you got all these issues and you working through it, and your hemoglobin is a 4. Because you're valuing the career, or you're putting the clients first, or all these things first, and not yourself. And I was like, that had to stop. Like,
and I'm so happy you said that, because that's the part of like self-care. We always talking about like self-care, self-love. Yeah. Right? And it's like, but what does self-love and self-care really look like if you're neglecting your health? Yeah.
And it's like, you can't fully love yourself if you're not at your best, or at least working towards being your best with your health. Where it's like, I think people just hold on the idea of like saying, I love myself. Yeah, you love yourself, but you're not fully loving yourself if you're not healthy the way you're going to be, because you're not going to be a present factor to the world.
Absolutely.
If you're not healthy.
Absolutely.
Like, what's going to happen?
Absolutely.
And that like near death thing was enough for me. Like, okay, you got to get your life together. Like, that needs to be your focus. That's literally what I spent all last year doing. Like, my health has to be put back into pieces in order for me to be my best self. because it's not going to work. If I go home and I'm sick at night, nobody knows that. Nobody knows it.
I think this is one of the things, like, I just wanted to tell you, like, I really admire you for sharing your story. One, because women need to see women like you. Women like you who you have a business, you're a mom, you basically run the industry in a city, right? And you're still saying, I have to show up for me. I have to sit down for a second and I have to get myself together. And so many women don't talk about the ugly part of it. They don't talk about, like, okay, they just show up. But it's like, as black women, as women, and especially as black women, like, we feel like you're more stronger if you show up. And it's like, no.
Yep. Sometimes it requires a no. And sometimes it requires you sitting down because you can't show up if you're not right.
For so long, I don't know where we lost it in our journey with our moms, our grandmoms. It's like, it's nothing selfish about doing something for you. Yeah. If you can do something for you, then you can show people, like, I show up for myself. Yeah. So I'm going to show up for you because I show up for me.
For me. And I don't understand the whole concept anyway. One is not cheap. It's an expensive process. So, yeah, I paid my money. I did what I needed to do for me. And I'm not shying away from it. And it's also a place of encouraging somebody else who might want to do this along their journey or might have their own insecurities or things like that. But you don't know because you don't know anybody else who went through the process. So you don't know that it's okay. And honestly, I think it's you're not honest with yourself if you're not okay talking about all the phases of your process and why. Like, I'm just in a space of, like, this is who I am and this is why. And this is the journey I'm walking regardless of who likes it, who it affects, and who doesn't. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the space I'm in. So whoever can receive it and take away from it, I'm going to pour out whatever information and knowledge you need because I can only focus on the people who want something different or who are in this space and they want to change it.
And I always I tell women all the time, I'm like, make it a personal journey. Yeah. When you actually, like, sit still and really feel what you need, your whole movement is going to be different. Even when you connect with other women, it's going to be different. And I say to women, I share my story all the time. Yes, I was divorced once. Yes, I was a doormat. Yes, I once didn't love myself. However, today I put the work in. I went to therapy. I had to lose myself to find myself again. Yeah. I was able to choose love. I can organically say, I'm happy. Yeah.
But that's because you was in a space of being honest with who you are for yourself and not necessarily for people. I think that that's super important. That's the part that people don't acknowledge of, like, when I want to be happy for myself, you got to be transparent in order to do that because then you're not being real for you. You're really not. You're not showing up for you. Like you said, and it's like, at what point do you show up for you?
Today, how do you feel? Like, are you feel like, are you at your best? Like, I have blossomed into the woman that, because sometimes I always say, like, we get to decide who we want to be. Yes, God has created us. We have a blueprint, right? But every day that you choose to show up for you, you can either show up or you can, like, you can oppress yourself.
Right. I am extremely happy with the person that I am today. It took some time to get here. I do have one more phase on my journey to feeling like totally whole and complete. I want to go back to counseling, so I never went to individual counseling. The crazy part is because that was my career, I kind of took myself through like a counseling process. But there are still like disconnected relationships that I have that have to be repaired in order for me to be my whole self, because I still carry other people's burdens. And in this new journey and space that I'm walking into 35, I'm not carrying other people's burdens anymore. So in order to do that, I have to have those real conversations with certain people. And these are people that are like close to me. And I already know that's going to be a process that might shake tables a little bit, because when you walk in your journey and finding your own peace and happiness, everybody's not going to be happy with that.
And you make some people uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable space, and I'm very comfortable in the space I am now. So preparing for that, I know that that's going to cause a ripple in my day-to-day, because it might truly shift what my everyday life looks like. Because it's close-knit for me. But I know it's the final step that I have to do to really reach my full capacity of happiness. But with myself, I'm extremely happy in the space that I'm in. Health-wise, I'm super happy. If I could get my thyroid under control, we'd really be on and rocking. But I'm content where I am. I would just love to be able to control the hormone. But I think that that's just also a part of the process as a woman too. It will never be perfect, I think, with us as women. So it's just like, once I'm healed, I can get back in the gym. I can start doing the things that I know are going to push me those steps further. I think I'll be extremely happy in that space, but I wouldn't change it because that's my story. That's my part of my process, my journey, going through them things, the biggest health issues, but the hysterectomy was needed. Mine's was okay. My healing was okay. But I know everybody else's story doesn't look like that. But that time down allowed for me to process myself and do a lot of growth because you're down for a long time. And it made me realize life, appreciate things more, and appreciate myself more. Because when you possibly lose yourself in totality, your value and the way you look and view life becomes totally different. In loving me more because I obviously didn't love myself enough to walk around at that level of health that I was literally on my deathbed and I didn't even know it. That was a different wake-up call for me. Like, you got to start putting you first. Everything else can pause because if you're not here, none of that stuff is going to matter if you can't physically even do it. So that was it for me. So if I didn't have that happen, I don't even think I would have done that. I would have still been running,
moving and shaking,
and not prioritizing myself. Like
you may have not even made it, to be honest.
May not even made it. If I'd have laid down that day, who's to say I would have even gotten up to even be having these conversations where now I value my massages that I get monthly, all the things that I do for my self-care. Just so that I can sustain living the life the way I want to live with my health and my everyday process. Like, that's important to me. And I don't break or steer away from it. Like, just because this is what I need to be who I want to be. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. And I tell you all the time, like, I truly admire you for always being transparent. You never know what someone is going through. And every time I'm in front of you and every time I speak to you, you always show me grace. And it's like, it's a perfect example of like, this is what sisterhood really looks like, right? When you don't know someone personally and you can still show them grace. And then when you even get to know them personally, you hear their story, you be like, wow.
So let me give you your flowers before this is over, because I think that your product was a part of my process. That if I would not have even started the herbal sticks, because when I started them was right after my hysterectomy and I was struggling so bad that the product, it literally helped change my life and heal me internally inside out. With the wombs. And I'm super, super thankful for your product. That's why I'm like, nope, live by them and everybody better get them. Because it was life-changing for me, even just to get my body back to heal on the inside. Because I wasn't healed on the inside, where on the outside I was physically healed. But I would still have pains when I would go to the bathroom and pee. Pressure to the point where I'm holding my stomach just so that the pressure and the pains don't pull on the inside. So it wasn't until talking to you and talking about womb and like healing your womb from the inside out that I don't even know if you realize what type of $1 million product you have that every single woman in the world needs to know about. Because I don't think anybody taught us about the womb and how it affects your entire body. Like totality. So that's something that I think that you deserve your flowers for. And I think it needs to continue to be impressed out into the world, because women across the world have a womb, and it's something that everybody needs to know about, and they need to get the product. So if that was a part of my journey, and it has to be highlighted, because I wouldn't even been able to heal correctly without taking your products.
Stop and take a deep breath. release it.